June 1815. The Battle of Waterloo had ended 12 hours earlier. 50,000 men lay dead or dying across 6 square miles of Belgian farmland. The generals had retreated. The armies had gone home. But by midnight, someone else had arrived. They moved quietly between the bodies in the dark. They carried no weapons. They carried no torches. They carried pliers. And they were not there for gold or rings or military medals. They were there for teeth. Working through the night with practiced efficiency, these scavengers moved from body to body across the killing fields of Waterloo. They pried open the mouths of dead soldiers. They gripped each front tooth with their pliers and extracted it with a single practiced twist. By dawn, they had filled multiple barrels. The teeth were cleaned, sorted by size, and shipped in those barrels directly to London and Paris, where they were purchased by denture makers, fitted into ivory or hippopotamus bone gum plates, and sold to wealthy clients across Britain, France, and America. For the next decade, the most fashionable dentures in Europe had a specific name: Waterloo Teeth. When a wealthy Victorian smiled across a candlelit ballroom in 1820, there was a statistically real possibility that the teeth in their mouth had been pulled from the jaw of a dead French or British soldier less than 5 years earlier. They wore them proudly. They paid handsomely for them. And most of them never asked where they came from. But here is what makes this more than a disturbing historical footnote. The Waterloo teeth trade did not happen in a vacuum. It happened because Victorian society had created a dental catastrophe so complete, so widespread, and so devastating that the teeth of battlefield dead were considered a luxury solution. This is not a story about one battle. This is a story about what humans did to their own mouths for 5,000 years before a man in Connecticut put safe cream into a metal tube. And the truth is darker than anything your dentist has ever mentioned. Welcome to Hist Discover. The archive is now open. To understand how the Waterloo teeth trade was possible, you need to understand the world that created the demand. For most of human history, the human mouth was a disaster zone, not because people were careless or ignorant, because they had no effective weapons against what was happening inside. The ancient Egyptians ground their teeth down to the nerve trying to clean them, using tooth powders made from crushed ox hooves, eggshells, and burnt myrrh mixed into an abrasive paste that scraped enamel away with every application. The Romans, documented by the physician Scribonius Largus in 47 CE, cleaned their teeth with urine, specifically Portuguese urine, imported, bottled, sold commercially. The ammonia content, they believed, was the most powerful cleaning agent available. They were not entirely wrong about the chemistry. They were entirely wrong about the consequences. For centuries, these were the solutions available to human beings trying to manage pain, decay, and infection in their mouths. But then, something changed. In the 1700s and 1800s, as sugar production exploded in the Caribbean and began flooding into European and American markets at prices ordinary people could finally afford, something began happening to human teeth at a rate never seen before in history. They began rotting rapidly, systematically, across entire populations. By 1800, tooth decay had reached epidemic levels in Britain and America. Cities that had never seen widespread dental disease were suddenly overwhelmed with it. Physicians of the era noted with alarm that the mouths of their patients were deteriorating faster than any previous generation on record. And here is the detail that makes this particularly disturbing. Blackened, decaying teeth in the early Victorian period were not considered shameful. They were considered a status symbol, because black teeth meant you could afford sugar. Sugar was expensive. Sugar was fashionable. Sugar was aspirational. And the decay it caused was visible proof that you had access to it. So wealthy Victorians smiled with their rotting mouths and considered it a demonstration of prosperity, until the pain became unbearable. And then they went looking for solutions. The solutions they found were in almost every case more dangerous than the problem they were trying to solve. But the most dangerous of all was not something exotic or unusual. It was the single most common dental product sold across America and Britain for most of the 19th century, and it was destroying mouths across 2 continents while being marketed as the solution to saving them. What was in it, when examined by the few chemists who bothered to look, would today trigger an immediate product recall across every country on Earth. Before toothpaste existed in a tube, the standard dental hygiene product across the Western world was called tooth powder. It was sold in decorative tins at pharmacies, general stores, and traveling medicine carts across Britain and America. It was completely unregulated. Anyone could manufacture it. Anyone could sell it, and almost no one checked what was inside it. Historical pharmacy records, now held in the archives of the Wellcome collection in London, reveal what Victorian tooth powders actually contained: the base of most formulas, chalk dust, and pulverized brick. Yes, ground brick, rubbed directly onto tooth enamel every morning. The abrasive quality of brick powder did remove surface stains temporarily. It also functioned over months of daily use, like very fine sandpaper applied directly to the most delicate surface of the human tooth. The enamel, the hard protective outer layer that once destroyed can never regenerate, was being stripped away grain by grain every single morning by millions of people who believed they were practicing good hygiene. But brick dust was not the most damaging ingredient. The premium formulations, the ones sold at higher prices, the ones marketed as being more effective, contained acidic compounds specifically designed to chemically strip surface stains from the tooth. Among them, oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is the same compound found in rust remover products available in hardware stores today. Victorian consumers rubbed rust remover on their gums every morning because their dentist recommended it. The acid worked exactly as advertised in the short term. Surface stains dissolved. Teeth appeared visibly whiter within days of use. What the advertisements did not mention was what happened in the medium term. Oxalic acid does not distinguish between surface stains and tooth enamel. It dissolves both. Within 6 months of regular use, the enamel layer of the tooth was significantly compromised. Within a year, in documented cases examined by Victorian medical investigators, the enamel was gone entirely in some patients. The exposed dentine beneath began absorbing bacteria directly. Decay accelerated at a rate that, according to historical dental records analyzed by researchers at King's College London, shocked even physicians of the era, who were already accustomed to seeing widespread dental destruction. Teeth that might have survived decades under normal conditions crumbled within years.
And when they crumbled, when the pain became unbearable, and no amount of acidic powder could mask it any longer, the patient had only one option remaining. They had to have the tooth removed. And the removal process in the Victorian era was something that the most disturbing chapters of modern medical history
struggle to fully capture. Because in 1850, there were no licensed dentists in most of America. There was no standardized dental training. There was no anesthesia. There was no sterilization. And the tools used to remove teeth from conscious patients were instruments that today would be classified, without exaggeration, as torture devices. The man most likely to extract your tooth in 1850 was not a doctor. He was your barber, and the instrument he used had not changed in design since the Middle Ages. There were no licensed dentists in America until the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery opened in 1840. Before that, and for decades afterward in rural areas, dental extraction was performed by whoever in your town was willing to do it. Most commonly, the barber. Barber surgeons were a recognized profession in Britain and America throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. They cut hair, shaved beards, performed minor surgical procedures, and extracted teeth, all from the same chair with the same hands, using instruments that were wiped between uses at best and simply reused unwashed at worst. The primary extraction tool was called the dental pelican. It was named for its resemblance to a pelican's beak. The device consisted of a metal shaft with a curved claw at one end, designed to grip the crown of a tooth, a fulcrum pad pressed against the adjacent gum or tooth for leverage. The operator applied rotational force to the shaft, and the tooth was theoretically pried from its socket through mechanical leverage. Theoretically. In practice, rushed or inexperienced operators, which was most of them, frequently applied force at the wrong angle. The result was not a clean extraction. The result was a fractured tooth, a shattered root, or, in documented cases, a fractured section of the jawbone itself coming away with the tooth. There was no anesthesia until 1846, which means that every single dental extraction performed before that date, and for many years after in areas where ether had not yet reached, was performed on a fully conscious, fully feeling human being. Patients were held down, or strapped into the chair, or asked to grip the armrests and not move. The fastest operators became locally famous specifically because of their speed. A barber surgeon in Bristol named William Wadd reported extracting a molar in under 3 seconds. Speed was the only mercy available, but speed created its own catastrophes. Rushed extractions with contaminated instruments in the pre-antiseptic era, before Joseph Lister published his germ theory work in 1867, introduced bacterial infection directly into the open extraction socket. Post-extraction sepsis spread through the jawbone, into the neck, into the bloodstream. Historical medical records analyzed by dental historians at King's College London indicate that post-extraction infection was among the leading causes of death in otherwise healthy adults during the Victorian period. They did not die from the toothache. They died from the barber's pliers. And yet, as horrifying as the barber surgeon's chair was, it was not the most disturbing element of the Victorian dental crisis. Because once your teeth were gone, whether from acidic powders or barber surgeon extractions, you needed replacements. And in the 19th century, the question of where those replacement teeth came from has an answer so disturbing that it was largely absent from mainstream historical accounts for over a century. It takes us back to Belgium. It takes us back to a battlefield. It takes us back to pliers in the dark. The Waterloo Teeth trade did not begin at Waterloo, and it did not end there either. What came before and what came after is the part of this story that history chose to quietly forget. The Battle of Waterloo lasted one day, June 18th, 1815. By the time the last cannon fired, Napoleon's army was destroyed. The Duke of Wellington had secured his victory, and across 6 square miles of Belgian farmland, approximately 50,000 men were dead, dying, or too wounded to move. The official armies withdrew, the scavengers arrived. They had followed the armies across Europe for exactly this purpose. Professional tooth hunters, some operating independently, some working for established London dental suppliers, descended on the battlefield before the bodies were cold. They worked methodically. A healthy young soldier, well fed by military rations, physically active, in his 20s or 30s, had teeth in significantly better condition than the average civilian of the era. Civilian mouths had been destroyed by sugar, by acidic tooth powders, by barber surgeon extractions gone wrong. Battlefield dead were, in a horrifying sense, a premium source. The tooth hunters extracted primarily the front teeth, incisors and canines, as these were the teeth most visible in dentures and therefore most commercially valuable. They used the same pliers the barber surgeons used, the same technique, the same practiced efficiency. By dawn, they had collected tens of thousands of teeth. The teeth were packed into barrels with salt to preserve them, shipped by boat to Paris and London, received by denture manufacturers who cleaned them, sorted them by size and condition, and mounted them into gum plates made from hippopotamus ivory or human bone. The finished dentures were sold to wealthy clients who could afford them, and they were sold with a specific provenance that the wealthy clients considered a mark of quality: Waterloo Teeth. The name was not a euphemism. It was a marketing term. Denture makers and their clients understood exactly what it meant and where the teeth had come from. In the drawing rooms and ballrooms of London society in the years following 1815, Waterloo teeth were considered among the finest dentures available. The teeth of young, healthy soldiers were preferable to the decayed civilian teeth otherwise available, or to carved ivory, which looked artificial and wore unevenly. George Washington's famous dentures, now preserved at the Mount Vernon estate in Virginia and examined by historians using modern analysis, contained human teeth among their components, according to the Mount Vernon Historical Archive. Washington suffered severe dental problems throughout his adult life. By the time of his first inauguration in 1789, he had only one natural tooth remaining. But what the history books almost never discuss is the full geographical reach of the battlefield tooth trade. Waterloo was not the beginning. The practice of extracting teeth from battlefield dead had been documented as early as the American Revolutionary War of the 1770s.
And it did not end at Waterloo. The same trade continued after every major European conflict throughout the 19th century. After the Crimean War, after the American Civil War, where both Union and Confederate dead were scavenged for teeth that were shipped to European dental suppliers, after the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. For the better part of a century, the smiles of the wealthy across the Western world were built in part on the bodies of soldiers they had never met and wars they had never fought in. The trade finally declined, not because of moral objection. It declined because a safer, cheaper alternative was finally invented, and that invention, quiet, practical, and profoundly unglamorous, changed the human mouth forever. But before we get to the solution, there is one more chapter of the nightmare that almost no history book includes. Because while all of this was happening, while barbers were fracturing jawbones and tooth hunters were working the battlefields of Europe, the medical establishment had introduced a treatment for dental decay they promised was safe, affordable, and permanent. It was none of those things, and the consequences lasted not years, not decades, but 180 years. In 1833, two French brothers named the Crowcourt brothers arrived in New York City. They were not licensed dentists.
They had no formal dental training, but they had a product. They called it Royal Mineral Succedaneum. It was, in chemical terms, mercury amalgam, a mixture of liquid mercury and powdered silver that could be packed into a dental cavity while soft and would harden in place within minutes. The Crowcore brothers claimed it was painless, permanent, and completely safe. It was, in the short term, genuinely practical. It was far cheaper than the gold leaf that trained dentists used for fillings. It required no drilling. It was fast. It was accessible to patients who could never afford gold. Within years, mercury amalgam fillings had spread across the American dental profession. And within years, a growing number of dentists and physicians began raising concerns. Mercury is one of the most toxic naturally occurring substances on Earth. Its neurological effects had been documented since at least the 17th century. Hat makers who used mercury in the felt curing process, the origin of the phrase "mad as a hatter," developed tremors, memory loss, emotional instability, and in severe cases, complete neurological breakdown from chronic mercury exposure. The idea of packing mercury directly into a hole in a living person's tooth, where it would remain in direct contact with sensitive tissue, subject to daily temperature changes from hot and cold food, slowly releasing microscopic quantities of mercury vapor into the mouth with every bite, struck a significant portion of the medical community as obviously dangerous. In 1840, the American Society of Dental Surgeons, the first professional dental organization in the country, required its members to sign a pledge promising never to use mercury amalgam on their patients. They called it malpractice. The mercury advocates disagreed. The conflict split the American dental profession so severely that historians now refer to it as the Amalgam War. The Amalgam War lasted in various forms for the better part of a century. Mercury amalgam remained in widespread use. It remained in use through the 1850s, through the 1900s, through both world wars, through the post-war boom, through the space age, through the internet. In 2013, 180 years after the Crowcore brothers introduced it to New York, the United Nations convened the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Member nations signed a formal international treaty committing to the phase-out of dental mercury amalgam worldwide. 180 years. That is how long it took the international community to formally act on concerns that were first raised within years of mercury amalgam's introduction. During those 180 years, the filling was placed in the mouths of hundreds of millions of people across the world. People who trusted their dentists. People who were told it was safe. People who had no reason to doubt the professional consensus. History has a long memory, and it keeps a careful record of what the professional consensus gets wrong. The solution, when it finally arrived, did not arrive with fanfare. It did not come from a government program, or university laboratory, or a royal commission. It came from a dentist in New London, Connecticut, named Washington Wentworth Sheffield. In 1892, Sheffield had already spent years developing a dental cream, a mild, non-corrosive mixture of gentle abrasives, glycerin, and flavoring agents that cleaned teeth without destroying enamel, without acid, without chalk dust, without ground brick. The formula worked. The problem was delivery. Dental cream sold in ceramic jars was unhygienic, multiple customers dipping their brushes into the same jar, contaminating the product. It was messy, it was inconvenient, and it had no way of indicating to the user how much product remained. Sheffield's son, who was studying in Paris, had noticed that artists there stored their oil paints in small, flexible, collapsible metal tubes that could be sealed at one end and squeezed from the other. He wrote to his father suggesting the same approach. Sheffield agreed. In 1892, Washington Sheffield became the first person to sell dental cream in a collapsible metal tube. The format was immediately practical, hygienic, portable, measurable, sealed against contamination. Within 3 years, Colgate adopted the format. Within a decade, the tube had replaced the powder tin across America and Britain. The abrasive powders disappeared from pharmacy shelves, not because governments banned them, but because a product that worked better and caused less damage made them commercially irrelevant. The barber surgeons gave way to trained dental professionals as education standards finally developed, and the Waterloo Teeth trade faded, partly because improving standards of living and civilian dental health, and partly because vulcanite rubber, developed in the 1850s, provided a cheap, practical base for artificial teeth that made battlefield scavenging economically pointless. The nightmare ended, slowly, imperfectly, with a metal tube of mint cream. But here is what Sheffield's invention cannot undo. Here is what no invention ever fully undoes. The 180 years of mercury amalgam that followed his tube into dental practices worldwide. The generations of patients, your great-grandparents, possibly your grandparents, who sat in dental chairs and had a known neurotoxin packed into their teeth by professionals who assured them it was safe. The Minamata Convention of 2013 phases out mercury amalgam. It does not remove the fillings already placed. Hundreds of millions of mercury amalgam fillings remain in mouths around the world today, placed in good faith by professionals following the accepted standard of care, which raises the question that no dentist's waiting room will ever put on a poster. What is the accepted standard of care today? The treatment being confidently recommended in dental offices across America and Britain right now, that the year 2150 will look back on the way we look back on Waterloo Teeth and mercury amalgam. We do not know the answer. We never do. Not until enough time has passed. Not until enough damage has been done. The archive does not close on this question. It only opens wider. Subscribe to Hist Discover. The next file is already unsealed.